a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Nazi Party. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly referred to in English as the Nazi Party, was a far-right political party in Germany that was active between 1920 and 1945 and practiced the ideology of Nazism. Its precursor, the German Workers' Party, existed from 1919 to 1920. The Nazi Party emerged from the German nationalist, racist, and populist Freikorps paramilitary culture, which fought against the communist uprisings in post-World War I Germany. The party was created as a means to draw workers away from communism and into völkisch nationalism. Initially, Nazi political strategy focused on anti-big business, anti-bourgeois and anti-capitalist rhetoric, although such aspects were later downplayed in order to gain the support of industrial entities, and in the 1930s the party's focus shifted to anti-Semitic and anti-Marxist themes. Pseudo-scientific racism theories were central to Nazism. The Nazis propagated the idea of a people's community. Their aim was to unite racially desirable Germans as national comrades, while excluding those deemed either to be political dissidents, physically or intellectually inferior, or of a foreign race. The Nazis sought to improve the stock of the Germanic people through racial purity and eugenics, broad social welfare programs, and a collective subordination of individual rights, which could be sacrificed for the good of the state and the Aryan master race. To maintain the supposed purity and strength of the Aryan race, the Nazis sought to exterminate Jews, Romani and Poles along with the vast majority of other Slavs and the physically and mentally handicapped. They imposed exclusionary segregation on homosexuals, Africans, Jehovah's Witnesses and political opponents. The persecution reached its climax when the party-controlled German state organized the systematic genocidal killing of an estimated 5.5 to 6 million Jews and millions of other targeted victims, in what has become known as the Holocaust. The party's leader since 1921, Adolf Hitler, was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg on 30 January 1933. Hitler rapidly established a totalitarian regime known as the Third Reich. Following the defeat of the Third Reich, at the conclusion of World War II in Europe, the party was declared to be illegal by the Allied powers, who carried out denazification in the years after the war. Etymology. The term Nazi derives from the name given in German to a party member and was coined in response to the German term Suzi, an abbreviation of Sozialdemokrat. Members of the party referred to themselves as Nationalsozialisten, rarely as Nazis. The term Parteigenosse was commonly used among Nazis, with the feminine form Parteigenossen used when it was appropriate. The term was in use before the rise of the party as a colloquial and derogatory word for a backward peasant, characterizing an awkward and clumsy person. It derived from Ignaz, being a shortened version of Ignatius, a common name in Bavaria, the area from which the Nazis emerged. Opponents seized on this and shortened the party's name in intentional association to the long-time existing Suzi to the dismissive Nazi. In 1933, when Adolf Hitler assumed power of the German government, usage of the designation Nazi diminished in Germany. Although Austrian anti-Nazis continued to use the term derogatorily, the use of Nazi Germany and Nazi regime was popularized by anti-Nazis and German exiles abroad. Thereafter, the term spread into other languages and eventually was brought back to Germany after World War II. Origins and early existence, 1918-1923. The party grew out of smaller political groups with a nationalist orientation that formed in the last years of World War I. In 1918, a league called the Freien Arbeiterausschuss für einen guten Frieden was created in Bremen, Germany. On 7 March 1918, Anton Drexler, an avid German nationalist, formed a branch of this league in Munich. Drexler was a local locksmith who had been a member of the militarist Fatherland Party during World War I and was bitterly opposed to the armistice of November 1918 and the revolutionary upheavals that followed. Drexler followed the views of militant nationalists of the day, such as opposing the Treaty of Versailles, having anti-Semitic, anti-monarchist and anti-Marxist views, as well as believing in the superiority of Germans whom they claimed to be part of the Aryan master race. However, he also accused international capitalism of being a Jewish-dominated movement and denounced capitalists for war profiteering in World War I. Drexler saw the political violence and instability in Germany the result of the Weimar Republic being out of touch with the masses, especially the lower classes. Drexler emphasized the need for a synthesis of völkisch nationalism with a form of economic socialism, in order to create a popular nationalist-oriented workers' movement that could challenge the rise of communism and internationalist politics. These were all well-known themes popular with various Weimar paramilitary groups such as the Freikorps. Drexler's movement received attention and support from some influential figures. Supporter Dietrich Eckart, a well-to-do journalist, brought military figure Felix Graf von Bothmer, a prominent supporter of the concept of National Socialism, to address the movement. Later in 1918, Karl Harrer convinced Drexler and several others to form the Politische Arbeiterzirkel. The members met periodically for discussions with themes of nationalism and racism directed against the Jews. In December 1918, Drexler decided that a new political party should be formed, based on the political principles that he endorsed, by combining his branch of the Workers' Committee for a Good Peace with the Political Workers' Circle. On 5 January 1919, Drexler created a new political party and proposed it be named the German Socialist Workers' Party, but Harrer objected to the term Socialist. So the term was removed, and the party was named the German Workers' Party. To ease concerns among potential middle-class supporters, Drexler made clear that unlike Marxists, the party supported the middle class and that its socialist policy was meant to give social welfare to German citizens deemed part of the Aryan race. They became one of many völkisch movements that existed in Germany. Like other völkisch groups, the DAP advocated the belief that through profit sharing instead of socialization, Germany should become a unified, people's community, rather than a society divided along class and party lines. This ideology was explicitly anti-Semitic. As early as 1920, the party was raising money by selling a tobacco called anti-Semitic. From the outset, the DAP was opposed to non-nationalist political movements, especially on the left, including the Social Democratic Party of Germany and the Communist Party of Germany. Members of the DAP saw themselves as fighting against Bolshevism, and anyone considered a part of or aiding so-called international Jewry. The DAP was also deeply opposed to the Versailles Treaty. The DAP did not attempt to make itself public and meetings were kept in relative secrecy, with public speakers discussing what they thought of Germany's present state of affairs, or writing to like-minded societies in northern Germany. The DAP was a comparatively small group with fewer than 60 members. Nevertheless, it attracted the attention of the German authorities, who were suspicious of any organization that appeared to have subversive tendencies. In July 1919, while stationed in Munich, Führer Adolf Hitler was appointed a Verbindungsmann of an Aufklärungskommando of the Reichswehr by Captain Mehr, the head of the Education and Propaganda Department in Bavaria. Hitler was assigned to influence other soldiers and to infiltrate the DAP. While attending a party meeting on 12 September 1919, Hitler became involved in a heated argument with a visitor, Professor Baumann, who questioned the soundness of Gottfried Fieder's arguments against capitalism. Baumann proposed that Bavaria should break away from Prussia and found a new South German nation with Austria. In vehemently attacking the man's arguments, Hitler made an impression on the other party members with his oratorical skills. According to Hitler, the professor left the hall acknowledging unequivocal defeat. Drexler encouraged him to join the DAP. On the orders of his army superiors, Hitler applied to join the party and within a week was accepted as party member 555. Among the party's earlier members were Ernst Röhm of the Army's District Command 7, Dietrich Eckart, who has been called the spiritual father of National Socialism, then University of Munich student Rudolf Hess, Freikorps soldier Hans Frank, and Alfred Rosenberg, often credited as the philosopher of the movement. All were later prominent in the Nazi regime. Hitler later claimed to be the seventh party member. Anton Drexler drafted a letter to Hitler in 1940, which was never sent, that contradicts Hitler's later claim. Hitler's first DAP speech was held in the Hofbraukeller on 16 October 1919. He was the second speaker of the evening, and spoke to 111 people. Hitler later declared that this was when he realized he could really make a good speech. At first, Hitler spoke only to relatively small groups, but his considerable oratory and propaganda skills were appreciated by the party leadership. With the support of Anton Drexler, Hitler became chief of propaganda for the party in early 1920. Hitler began to make the party more public, and organized its biggest meeting yet of 2,000 people on the 24th of February 1920 in the Staatsliches Hofbräuhaus in München. Such was the significance of this particular move in publicity that Karl Harrer resigned from the party in disagreement. It was in this speech that Hitler enunciated the 25 points of the German Workers' Party manifesto that had been drawn up by Drexler, Feder, and himself. Through these points he gave the organization a much bolder stratagem with a clear foreign policy, and among his specific points were confiscation of war profits, abolition of unearned incomes, the state to share profits of land and land for national needs to be taken away without compensation. In general, the manifesto was anti-Semitic, anti-capitalist, anti-democratic, anti-Marxist, and anti-liberal. To increase its appeal to larger segments of the population, on the same day as Hitler's Hofbräuhaus speech on the 24th of February 1920, the DAP changed its name to the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei. The word "socialist" was added by the party's executive committee, over Hitler's objections, in order to help appeal to left-wing workers. In 1920, the Nazi Party officially announced that only persons of pure Aryan descent could become party members, and if the person had a spouse, the spouse also had to be a racially pure Aryan. Party members could not be related either directly or indirectly to a so-called non-Aryan, even before it had become legally forbidden by the Nuremberg laws in 1935. The Nazis banned sexual relations and marriages between party members and Jews. Party members found guilty of Rassenschande were persecuted heavily. Some members were even sentenced to death. Hitler quickly became the party's most active orator, appearing in public as a speaker 31 times within the first year after his self-discovery. Crowds began to flock to hear his speeches. Hitler always spoke about the same subjects: the Treaty of Versailles and the Jewish question. This deliberate technique and effective publicizing of the party contributed significantly to his early success, about which a contemporary poster wrote, "Since Herr Hitler is a brilliant speaker, we can hold out the prospect of an extremely exciting evening." Over the following months, the party continued to attract new members, while remaining too small to have any real significance in German politics. By the end of the year, party membership was recorded at 2,000, many of whom Hitler and Röhm had brought into the party personally, or for whom Hitler's oratory had been their reason for joining. Hitler's talent as an orator and his ability to draw new members, combined with his characteristic ruthlessness, soon made him the dominant figure. However, while Hitler and Eckart were on a fundraising trip to Berlin in June 1921, a mutiny broke out within the party in Munich. Members of its executive committee wanted to merge with the rival German Socialist Party. Upon returning to Munich on the 11th of July, Hitler angrily tendered his resignation. The committee members realized that his resignation would mean the end of the party. Hitler announced he would rejoin on condition that he would replace Drexler as party chairman, and that the party headquarters would remain in Munich. The committee agreed, and he rejoined the party on the 26th of July as member 3680. Hitler continued to face some opposition within the NSDAP, as his opponents had Hermann Esser expelled from the party, and they printed 3,000 copies of a pamphlet attacking Hitler as a traitor to the party. In the following days, Hitler spoke to several packed houses and defended himself and Esser to thunderous applause. His strategy proved successful. At a special party congress on the 29th of July 1921, he replaced Drexler as party chairman by a vote of 533 to 1. The committee was dissolved, and Hitler was granted nearly absolute powers as the party's sole leader. He would hold the post for the remainder of his life. Hitler soon acquired the title Führer, and after a series of sharp internal conflicts it was accepted that the party would be governed by the Führerprinzip. Under this principle, the party was a highly centralized entity that functioned strictly from the top down, with Hitler at the apex as the party's absolute leader. Hitler saw the party as a revolutionary organization, whose aim was the overthrow of the Weimar Republic, which he saw as controlled by the Socialists. Jews and the November criminals, who had betrayed the German soldiers in 1918. The SA were founded as a party militia in 1921 and began violent attacks on other parties. For Hitler, the twin goals of the party were always German nationalist expansionism and anti-Semitism. These two goals were fused in his mind by his belief that Germany's external enemies Britain, France and the Soviet Union were controlled by the Jews, and that Germany's future wars of national expansion would necessarily entail a war against the Jews. For Hitler and his principal lieutenants, national and racial issues were always dominant. This was symbolized by the adoption as the party emblem of the swastika or Hakenkreuz. In German nationalist circles, the swastika was considered a symbol of an Aryan race, and it symbolized the replacement of the Christian cross with allegiance to a National Socialist state. The Nazi Party grew significantly during 1921 and 1922, partly through Hitler's oratorical skills, partly through the SA's appeal to unemployed young men, and partly because there was a backlash against socialist and liberal politics in Bavaria as Germany's economic problems deepened and the weakness of the Weimar regime became apparent. The party recruited former World War I soldiers, to whom Hitler as a decorated frontline veteran could particularly appeal, as well as small businessmen and disaffected former members of rival parties. Nazi rallies were often held in beer halls, where downtrodden men could get free beer. The Hitler Youth was formed for the children of party members. The party also formed groups in other parts of Germany. Julius Streicher in Nuremberg was an early recruit and became editor of the racist magazine Der Stürmer. In December 1920, the Nazi Party had acquired a newspaper, the Völkische Beobachter, of which its leading ideologist Alfred Rosenberg became editor. Others to join the party around this time were Heinrich Himmler and World War I flying ace Hermann Göring. On the 31st of October 1922, a party with similar policies and objectives came into power in Italy. The National Fascist Party, under the leadership of the charismatic Benito Mussolini. The fascists, like the Nazis, promoted a national rebirth of their country, as they opposed communism and liberalism, appealed to the working class, opposed the Treaty of Versailles, and advocated the territorial expansion of their country. The Italian fascists used a straight-armed Roman salute and wore black-shirted uniforms. Hitler was inspired by Mussolini and the fascists, borrowing their use of the straight-armed salute as a Nazi salute. When the fascists came to power in 1922 in Italy through their coup attempt called the March on Rome, Hitler began planning his own coup. In January 1923, France occupied the Ruhr industrial region as a result of Germany's failure to meet its reparations payments. This led to economic chaos, the resignation of Wilhelm Kino's government and an attempt by the German Communist Party to stage a revolution. The reaction to these events was an upsurge of nationalist sentiment. Nazi Party membership grew sharply to about 20,000. By November, Hitler had decided that the time was right for an attempt to seize power in Munich, in the hope that the Reichswehr would mutiny against the Berlin government and join his revolt. In this, he was influenced by former General Erich Ludendorff, who had become a supporter, though not a member, of the Nazis. On the night of the 8th of November, the Nazis used a patriotic rally in a Munich beer hall to launch an attempted putsch. This so-called beer hall putsch attempt failed almost at once when the local Reichswehr commanders refused to support it. On the morning of the 9th of November, the Nazis staged a march of about 2,000 supporters through Munich in an attempt to rally support. Troops opened fire and 16 Nazis were killed. Hitler, Ludendorff and a number of others were arrested and were tried for treason in March 1924. Hitler and his associates were given very lenient prison sentences. While Hitler was in prison, he wrote his semi-autobiographical political manifesto Mein Kampf. The Nazi Party was banned on the 9th of November 1923. However, with the support of the nationalist völkisch social bloc, it continued to operate under the name German Party. From 1924 to 1925, the Nazis failed to remain unified in the DP, as in the North. The right-wing völkisch nationalist supporters of the Nazis moved to the new German Völkisch Freedom Party, leaving the North's left-wing Nazi members, such as Joseph Goebbels, retaining support for the party. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to know more?